It's not the footwork. It's not the mechanics. It's not chemistry. It's the hair. It's gotta be the hair. And it goes like this. Put me in the game, I'm ready. I'll lead the team sure and steady with the hair like Jordan's. I've got the hair like Jordan's. I've got the hair like Jordan's. Skull cap so my sweat don't drip down. Hair flowing as I throw touchdowns with the hair like Jordan's. I've got the hair like Jordan's. I've got the hair like Jordan's.
Hello everybody, welcome to week 4 of Last Bull In. This week the UB Bulls will go against Ward Manual's UConn Huskies. We have a gorgeous weather day planned for Saturday, sunny, 73 degrees, not a chance of rain with a light wind day. This week, Last Bull In, we're going to start off with Jeff Quinn's Extension. We're going to do our MAC Roundup, UConn Guest Q&A, Bulls versus UConn matchup. We'll give you the keys to the game. We'll give you our predictions. And last but not least, we'll give you our shout-outs. I'd like to welcome now Conrad and Tim from Last Bull In and UBBulls.com.
But the topic that must be addressed that I wish we would we had this call last week, and the next day our very own Tim from Last Bull In and UB Bull Run was the one who broke the story, which, again, I'd like to mention that I'm very shocked that this story has not been run at the TB and the Buffalo News. So, obviously, I'd like to talk about Quinn's Extension. We'd like to start off with Tim. Tim, can you kind of give us the black and white of the contract?
Yeah, sure. It's a generic, in some ways it's a very generic, 4-year extension of the current contract. The only thing that differs from what you usually see is rather than a full salary payout every year, what we have to pay out per year declines. So without the extension, if we were to get rid of Quinn after this year, it would have cost UB $375,000. With the extension, it's going to cost us $900,000 if we want to get rid of him this year. But that amount drops every year. We don't have to pay him his full salary every year. We'd have to pay him his full salary, the next year, and the year after $275, and the year after $175, and the year after $100. On the upside, if Quinn is successful and hired away, UB is fully reimbursed for the whole length of the extension to the tune of $1.5 million if he was to be hired away after this season, and declining $375,000 every year. So, I don't know who's going to hire away Quinn this year, but if it happens, that's a windfall. There's a bunch of, the base salary is $375,000. There are a bunch of, performance incentives, and I guess were Quinn able to get UB into a BCS Bowl and win a BCS Bowl, he would get a bonus overall of $295,000 that year is the maximum, and that would be for being ranked in the top 25, beating a top 25, if the APR and GPA of the team is good, if the attendance of the team is good. It's a bunch of little ones. The big ones are the bowl games. $100,000 to play in a BCS Bowl, $50,000 to win it, $15,000 to play in the MAC Championship, $25,000 to win it, $5,000 to play in a bowl, and to finish in the AP top 25, another $10,000. All things be awesome to see. Whether or not we're going to see him, we don't know. I was very surprised at the extension. My initial reaction was just complete. I want to say disgust. I was pretty upset about it. And then when I first read the first time I read the contract, I read it as if we fire Quinn this year, it still costs just $375,000. I had to read it again to see what it was. So I went from really upset to like, oh, that's not a big deal, to that's kind of a big deal. And that's where I'm sitting with it. I am surprised the Buffalo News hasn't even gotten to it yet. Maybe it's just not news to them. Coach extended. That's not exactly dog bites, man.
Fire on the east side. Hey, Conrad. So, Tim, thank you very much. Again, kudos to Tim for staying on UB, having UB break this to Tim. Tim's the first one to kind of report this. Wish you didn't, but that's another subject. But Conrad, if we can shift to you, Conrad, tell me exactly now when you heard it, when Tim reported it, what was your initial thoughts? And tell me now that we've got almost a week to stomach it. Tell me what you're feeling right now, Conrad.
Before I go that, so you said that if we get rid of Quinn this year, it's $900,000.
That's the way I'm reading it. I've always prefaced this when I said it with I'm not a lawyer. I sent you guys copies of the extension. The way I first read it was if we fired him this year, it's $375. If we fire him next year, it's $275. But when I reread it, and I think someone on UB fan pointed it out too, that kind of reads like we pay him $375 this year, $275 next year, $175 the year after that, $100 the year after that.
Until he gets a job.
But this is all the other tweak here is this is all only if he's not coaching something else. Otherwise, we're just paying him the difference. And I think it's a fairly safe bet a fired Jeff Quinn would have a job as a coordinator pretty quickly because he does have a lot of success as a coordinator. And what does an offensive line coordinator in the Big Ten make? $250,000. So I think in practice this doesn't cost you that much more. Now, if Jeff Quinn gets fired and decides to go fishing for 2 years, then it gets expensive.
That my initial reaction is to look at the coverage of the story from the Buffalo Bulls side. So if you go back to last year, you have an article, Jeff Quinn agrees to an extension in principle, that would keep him here through the 2017 season. And so that's late November, or that's early November, right when that streak was happening, and that seemed to be a PR move, capitalizing on the fact that we were just winning a few games. And all the quotes were Danny White was confident that we had a foundation, that we were going to have a successful 2013 season. So even though it was too little, he proved too little to get that extension, it made sense in November, just the fact that we were trending upwards. On the complete opposite is it coming out this week. It's the worst PR week to do it. I'm sure Satish is busy as a president, but if he would have signed it the week after Ohio State, it would have been a little bit more well-received. If he would have signed it a week before Ohio State, we all knew it was on the table, it would have been a little more well-received. But after 70-13 and crawling away from an FCS team, you can't really write the paragraph about how you feel confident that 2013 is going to be a great year and that the foundation is built. And so now, the extension really has no basis right now, and it looks bad on Danny White. In my head, the foundation that he's talking about was built by Turner Gill, is built on Khalil Mack, is built on Brandon Oliver, and it's still basically the same team. The only difference is that Turner Gill could beat teams that were about the same or worse than them, while we tend to still lose to teams that are equal or worse than us, including a loss to Akron that I'll never get over in 2010. So, they both have the same number of quality wins. Turner's most quality win was against Ball State in the MAC championship, and Jeff Quinn had an equally quality win against Ohio Bobcats in 2011, who were the MAC East champions. But as it looks now, it looks like Jeff Quinn got lucky, and that Turner Gill, and he's still doing it with Turner Gill's players. So it's all bad. And then now, just is the first I'm hearing that it might be more than what we thought the buyout would be, and I'm sure the Buffalo News won't talk about it because they are already saying that we couldn't afford a $200,000 buyout, we couldn't afford a $300,000 buyout. There's no way we're going to be able to afford a $900,000 buyout. So he's our coach of the future. He's got basically 7 years to do what Turner Gill did in 2. So we'll see if he can do it in the next 5 years.
Well, it's $900,000 if we fired him tomorrow. If we wait until January 4th to relieve him of his duties, it drops down to $525,000, right? Because that's the $375 is gone. So yeah, has UB even officially announced the extension was signed yet or not? I haven't seen anything on the Athletics site about it. I only got it because I kept filing Freedom of Information requests, and UB Athletics was very helpful in fulfilling that. As soon as it hit their desk, they sent it to me, which was nice of them.
I think that speaks volumes to it. During the game thread, everyone was talking about. Danny White is selling, selling, selling. You cannot sell what we saw on the field. And unfortunately, I think this is a case of Danny White not listening to the people who are watching and maybe feeling smarter than everyone else. I think in basketball he may be he's smarter than me in basketball, smarter than everyone else in basketball. I don't know if he has it in football because everyone said the product on the field is terrible. And we had a couple games that, now mind you, were great to actually win again, but they weren't great displays of football. The Miami game shouldn't have come down to the last second. It was awful defense. Western Michigan was great defense, 4 interceptions, and we still only won by 5. So we won the turnover margin +4, +5, and still only got a couple points out of it. So and then we had to crawl from behind to beat UMass, which is embarrassing. So everyone said the quality of play wasn't good, and I think Danny White gambled that 2013 would be magical and that he might be able to make some money off of flipping Quinn, and now we're stuck with him.
Now, the thing that I don't get is it doesn't make sense to do it. The president of the university, he signed this after the Baylor game. So he signed this contract on September 11th, which doesn't make sense to me because you just saw what happened at Baylor. Now, again, Baylor is a great team. They hang points on a lot of people, but it doesn't make sense why to do that. And again, I don't understand the excuse that people make that says, well, he probably would have done a very good job of recruiting this year because he would have been a lame duck coach. I don't buy this. This financially doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense for the product. Again, I think this extension would cost more of having people not come to the stadium, to not be entrenched and not be, again, the issue I've always had with UB is there's been so many kids to come through Amherst and none of them have had any passion or had any tie to the football team. So they leave here and UB football is nothing to them. And I think Quinn is gonna do the same thing where all these kids that are sitting at the Amherst campus right now are not going to care at all about UB football.
Yeah, no, I think you summed it up pretty good. Look, I'm trying not to put a target on myself here to you two guys and just say, you know what? I think at the end of the day, this doesn't cost UB too much more money. I think once you commit, wrongfully, but once you commit to renewing him last year and say we've reached an agreement in principle, I think you might spend more in legal costs to get out of that agreement in principle than you would to potentially get rid of Quinn even after this year if he's hired on by another staff. I'm not happy the extension was signed. I think other than taking him all the way through next season too, it's not going to cost us that much more. Like without the extension, if we got rid of him after the season, it cost us $375,000. With the extension, it cost us $575,000, assuming he sits on the couch and collects checks. And I was much more disturbed about this till I started poking around and looking at the salaries of what coordinators and even just position coaches make in the bigger conferences. And Jeff Quinn, as an offensive line coach in the Big Ten or for Notre Dame or wherever he lands, is going to be making $200K, $300K. That's going to more than cover what UB's obligation. So I think the true impact of this is a lot less than the message it sends, right? So I guess that's why I'm a lot less steamed than I was last week.
Well, I think the message it sends is an important thing. This guy has 10.
I don't disagree.
This guy has 10 wins. You're rewarding. We're talking about a program that allegedly punished this kid who pursuing an internship, and then we can reward this guy for 10 wins, 4 of them being against FCS teams. You're talking about. Satish kind of puts himself in line, but after meeting the guy, I feel like he knows nothing about sports, and he outsources it all to the athletic department. So I'm sure just on a stack of papers that he had to sign, and just can't. And his queue to sign a paper must be 5 months right now, or I guess it was only a month between when Danny White finally signed it. 1 month, yeah. So his queue to sign papers must be a month. I don't think he mulled over or even thought about the timing after the Baylor game. I'm sure he didn't even know the Baylor score. But with Danny White, this is, I can't blame Quinn for this extension. He's just got to keep on going on and doing his work. But Danny White gets a lot of blame from me out of this. The Reggie Witherspoon was controversial, but he made his way out of it. Firing Quinn would not have been controversial. Uh,
Hmm.
Extending him was, and unfortunately, you can't you can't book a concert to get yourself away from the product that's on the field. And so, if this team is anything less than 6-6, Danny White, that's strike 1 and 2, and Reggie Witherspoon strike 2.5. So his legacy is really on the line. I don't care what each club gets built. If we're still a 2-10 team, he's failed.
I agree. Now,
Yeah, no, I
yeah,
agree with you.
go ahead, Tim.
I said initially when this happened, this means that White owns Quinn. It's no longer blame Quinn on the previous guy for hiring him because you put your name next to his on a piece of paper and said, I want you to be UB's coach. So if this is another gutter fire 3-win season, that's all on Danny White now. If next year is a 3 or 4-win season, which it could be with who we're losing, that's all on Danny White now. So he's putting his stamp on what UB puts out there for the next couple of years. I agree with you 100%, Conrad.
What this contract means to me is that you're going to see Jeff Quinn walking the sidelines of UB football next year. And if UB does not have a solid season this year, if UB only has 1 or 2 more victories, that should not happen. Unfortunately, you've given him more than enough time to put his stamp on it, to bring in his coaches, to start bringing players that can adhere to what he wants to do in the field. So if Jeff Quinn has 1, 2, or 3 more wins this year, I'm sorry, this was an absolute joke. This was an absolute waste of time and money. And I'm telling you, if this team goes down and doesn't perform in the MAC, the meat of the MAC schedule, and Jeff Quinn's on the field, I'm telling you, that stadium is going to be dead next year. And that's a shame because the fans of UB and the students of UB, they deserve much more than what they're getting. It's a joke to me. Okay, well, let's segue. Okay, after that, speaking of
How
the
do you
MAC, Sarah,
segue that?
I don't know. I just fired up, and I'm trying not to say something too stupid. Uh, what we'd like to do now is obviously not having a game last week to talk about. We'd like to go around the MAC and let's talk about the teams that UB is going to be playing the rest of the season. Let's look at how they did last week, and again, let's talk about when they're going to be playing. So let's start off with again Toledo 38, Central Michigan 17. We play at the Glass Bowl on week 10, which is going to be November 12th. So, Tim, did you want to take over? Tell me, did you get a chance to take a look at this game and tell us what your thoughts are?
I watched it a little bit. The more I see Fluellen, the more I see the lost opportunity. Partially because Potts has yet to materialize and may never materialize. But I think Fluellen's probably the best running back in the MAC right now, and so that's the bad news. The bad news for UB is that Toledo can really run the ball, and Fluellen is really a very diverse running back. Like he can pound it. He's also pretty quick, and he's not too bad in the passing game. The good news for UB coming out of that game was Central Michigan ran the ball pretty well, better than the stat line looks like. If you look at the stat line, it looks bad, but that's because their quarterback lost 30, 35 yards in sacks. Their running backs put up more than 200 yards running against Toledo, and they're not a great running team this year. When CMU wasn't turning the ball over, it was a pretty close game. I think they had one fumble in the first half, but the Chips turned the ball over 3 times in the second half. That's kind of when Toledo ran away with it. So, Toledo is one of those MAC teams that has yet to prove who they are this year, kind of like everybody. I mean, everyone in the MAC has played really, really great teams and then FCS teams for the most part, other than Ohio and Ball State. So we're going to find out more who they are as the season goes on. I think we all know CMU is pretty bad this year, so I'm not putting too much stock in this game.
Good, thanks. Next team would be Vanderbilt, who beat UMass 24-7. We play UMass in Week 7, which is October 19th. That is a home game. I think UMass did better than I thought most people did. So, Conrad, tell me what your thoughts about the UMass-Vanderbilt game.
Yeah, that was another game that hurts, just like UConn Michigan. Vanderbilt has a really talented receiver and a good quarterback, so that's going to be their comparison game for Makaba and Newts, and they did a good job on defense. UMass still is going to struggle on offense, and just like the Stony Brook game, it's a game that our defense should take over and we should win, but at some point in the season, our offense has to find their identity with or without Bo. If we don't find that identity, we're going to struggle against UMass. And the best part about that game is it's going to be in Buffalo because I can see it being a similar game as last year. We didn't have Bo. We just got in Licata, and in that first half, UMass took it to us. And if it wasn't for miraculous fullback carrying the ball 20 times, and a punt block return, we lose that game. So that's not, none of our 6 easy wins are as easy as we thought they were in before the season started, and that's going to be one that again is going to make me a little nervous.
I think you're right. That none of these 6 are going to be easy. Maybe the easiest team that we're going to play, maybe next week's opponent, which is Eastern Michigan, which got drubbed by Ball State 51-20. Tim, recap of the game?
You see, this is why I don't look at the scores of games, right? When you say what the quality is. The Eagles turned the ball over 4 times. They gave up 80 yards and penalties. So yeah, the score was awful. And Ball State just put their foot on the throat in the first quarter. But what you saw with the MU was, other than the 2 picks, pretty efficient passing. He distributed the ball out to 8 different receivers. 8 different, running backs, tight ends, receivers. They ran 2 or 3 guys pretty well. The Eagles looked halfway decent offensively when they weren't turning the ball over, shooting themselves in the foot. A balanced passing team that can throw the ball to 4 or 5 guys really is scary, right? Why did we beat Stony Brook? Because they only had 2 guys they threw the ball to. We don't know how deep our secondary can go, and if they can straighten up the mistakes, and they can straighten up the stupid penalties, that could be a bad game. That could be a very bad matchup for us defensively.
Our Week 9 appointment team we're playing, I should say, November 15th, which is going to be another home game, is going to be Ohio. I will probably say this name wrong, but it's Austin P. It's not PV, it's P. Well, Ohio blanked them 38-0. So obviously that's an FCS team. So Conrad, your thoughts on that?
Well, that's a proper FCS game from Ohio. I think I did not watch a second of it. I think as soon as the game came on, it was already 21-0. So I said, I don't need to see that. But as I look back, Tyler Telton started the game 13 for 15 for 213 yards and 3 touchdown passes. And, man, the max top 68 players countdown happened, and I said I was not very impressed by Telton, especially because Ohio comes to Buffalo and superheroes, and they always look so mortal against us, especially when they come to Buffalo. I haven't seen greatness from Telton in a game against us yet, but he's looking really good this year. A couple of MAC quarterbacks are looking really good, along with Keith Winning, and the kid in Bowling Green scares me because he can run. So, Ohio's rolling right now. The problem with Ohio is always keeping it going and staying healthy. So we'll see what happens to them in the month of October.
Well, speaking of Bowling Green with a big win last week, 48-7 over Murray State. We played them in Week 12, which is going to be at Ralph Wilson Stadium, so it's the day after Thanksgiving. So, Tim, your thoughts on Bowling Green?
I did not catch that game at all, but just looking at the byline, looking at the box score, they put up 660 yards, going 3 deep in their quarterbacks and 5 deep in the running backs. Like Conrad said, that's a proper FCS game. That's what you should do to an FCS team when you come in, is make sure your third stringer gets in there and gets 5-6 throws in. Defensively, they held Murray State to 4.2 yards per pass attempt. So, I had some questions about what was their defense? Was their defense what we saw against Tulsa, or was their defense what Kent seemed to exploit in the first half and what Indiana just destroyed? Yeah, FCS games still don't know, but I think they're getting over some of the personnel losses they had last year, and there weren't many, but they're getting over what they did lose, and I think they're going to come in really, really tough to move the ball on.
And our last opponent, speaking of Kent State, so Kent State went against Penn State last week. Penn State beat them 34-0. We play them Week 8, which is October 26. Now that's going to be at Dick's Stadium. So, Conrad, your thoughts on Kent State?
I think they're a team that is our mirror image right now. They went to LSU 2 weeks ago. Very difficult. and then came right back up to Penn State. So kind of the reverse of our Ohio State to Baylor trip, and I just feel for them. They're probably putting their season. They're probably just, their whole season's probably over now because how do you recover from that and go straight into MAC play? The only grace that we had was bye week and that Stony Brook game. I imagine if we had to play, Ohio or Bowling Green the week after we got back from Baylor, it would be bad. So they've also lost their star and Jeree Archer. Like we haven't really seen Bo at 100%. Who knows if Archer's going to be able to come back at 100% this season because it's been about a month since he originally injured himself. And without Archer and without Bo, we're both totally different teams. So I think Kent and Buffalo are both fighting for that number 3 spot in the East, but we might both be finding ourselves in that dogfight with Miami and, dare I say, Akron to see who really is in the middle of the pack in the East Division.
And speaking of Miami,
well, I had read that Jeree Archer should be activated this week, but yeah, who knows how long it'll take him to get back to being back to form. So, but that is a huge saving grace for Kent. I mean, Kent has not been the same team since they lost Archer. Now, again, they have a rookie quarterback, last name Reardon, who looks really good, and a new coach. So they may never really materialize, but we'll see. We'll start to see the real Kent State in the coming weeks.
The moral of the story is they
guys named Reardon can throw the ball.
Well, I would say they don't make running backs like they do in Western New York. Those are built to last running backs. Florida, they're quick, they're speedy, but Western New York built to last.
Hey, there's one game that I did forget. Sorry, one other team, and that was Miami, who went against Jeff Quinn's old team last week, the Cincinnati. Didn't put a point on the board. They lost 14-0. We play against them week 11, which is November 19th. That is at Yager Stadium. So, Tim, tell me about Miami.
Do you want to know how well Miami game planned their defense? Miami's offense put up 80 yards on the game. 0.2 yards per carry. Not 2.0, 0.2 yards per carry. And they were still tied, I think, late in the third or going into the fourth at 0-0. Their special teams are even better. They were blocking kicks. They were bringing pressure off the ends to make Cincinnati miss kicks. Really, Miami scary enough, Miami could have won this game. There was one drive when it was, I think, 0-0 where Miami was down inside the 30-yard line. I think either they missed a field goal or turned the ball over down there. But it was just a demonstration in bad offensive line play from Miami. Every time Boucher dropped back, he was getting jumped on. I caught a little bit of the fourth quarter when Cincinnati finally pulled ahead. I just felt bad for the kid. I just don't know how he would. I don't know how he's walking upright this week. It was like the water boy. Every time he dropped back, it seemed like one of Cincinnati's linebackers was jumping over the Miami line and chasing him all over the field. So I think the Red Hawks are not bound to be one of those teams we compete with, Conrad, for the lower middle of the pack end of the MAC. I think they will be down fighting with UMass not to be at the bottom.
They need O-line help. We have a certain coach with O-line specialty who knows Southwest Ohio. So someone get him.
And if they pay him $200,000 a year, I'll throw him smiles.
Hell, I would even take some of that contract. But that's been our whip around the MAC. So we looked at how the teams that UB are going to be facing the MAC this year, how they did last week, kind of a little indication where they're going to be. Hey, everybody, welcome. We'd like to welcome a very special guest tonight, Andrew from the UCONN Blog. Andrew's graciously decided to spend some time with us and kind of do a little banter back and forth. So, Andrew, welcome to Last Bowl In.
Thank you very much.
Good. Hey, to start off, I'll ask a quick question. Tell me, what are your thoughts about the game this weekend?
We got lots of thoughts for UConn going up to Buffalo, first road game of the season. It's a place they've had success before, but obviously they have yet to record a win this season. They know it's going to be a close game, and you're certainly going to expect that going into the fourth quarter. Looks like the Bulls are kind of getting a bit healthier in some very key important departments. Should be a good game.
Conrad?
So, what is your X factor for UConn? They've
coming off of 3 losses, but their most impressive loss last week. What is going to put UConn over the edge this week?
I think if there's going to be one thing to put them over the edge at the start of the game, it would be their health. Keeping out of the trainer's room right now, they've got a couple of very key injuries for players that were out against Michigan, and in my opinion, it could have put them out over the edge and affected the run and pass game. The right tackle, Kevin Friend, he's the best offensive lineman. He missed the game. Huskies really struggled to provide any clear space in the running game, and their best receiver, Shaquem Phillips, has been out with a high ankle sprain. Obviously, when you rack up, not even 250 passing yards, you're going to have issues, or not even 250 total yards. You're going to enjoy someone like that coming back, and I think if both of those guys are back, simply by being on the field, opening up opportunities for everybody else, they should put UConn over the edge.
Tim?
You kind of hit on what I was going to do with that. You hit on what I was going to ask with Phillips' status. He's still listed as questionable, but I believe Pasquale. I always mispronounce your coach's name. Pasquale?
Pasqualoni.
Pasqualoni.
All right.
You can tell Tim's
Pasqualoni said that. Pasqualoni said that he expects him to be a go. Is that still what you guys are hearing up there?
It's difficult. Phillips himself thought he was going to go against Michigan and declared as much against, on Tuesday before they played the Wolverines. Obviously, he didn't play. High ankle sprains are typically pretty tricky, usually 2 to 3 weeks. At this point, obviously, UConn's going to be pushing all that they can to pick up their first win. To me, I would say there's a little bit better than a 50% chance that Phillips will go, but right now I wouldn't guarantee it.
Hey, Andrew, when just say UConn does not win this game, tell me what's the reaction going to be in stores if they do come to UB and lose to basically a lower opponent in the MAC?
I think it's going to be pretty ugly out here in stores in East Hartford, and would set up probably a home stadium for their homecoming game that might just be around 2/3 full. They've all been they've been close games. Pure score-wise, Maryland was more of a blowout in favor of the Terrapins. Michigan, of course, was close, but the expectation going into this weekend for Husky fans is certainly they'll come away with a win and then be able to build from there before their conference schedule gets pretty tough.
Okay, so we just had our big Division I FCS scare. What happened against Towson? How did that happen?
The Towson game. Thank you for reminding me, my friend. There were a lot of things that went on with the Towson game. I think it's difficult to assess your level of competition in week 1 of any football season, and particularly when they play in a different league. So Towson was a team that was a veteran club. They're currently number 2 in all FCS. They had a very athletic front and a very good running game. Now UConn broke down against one of the most basic run plays in all of football, the Power O, which Towson ran against them 20% of the time. So when you can't stop a basic run play with your outside and contain, you're not going to stop much. On the offensive side of the ball, they did struggle with the offensive line, which is still an issue to date against the Towson pass rush. Running game was never allowed to get going, and from there it just kind of snowballed with the Huskies' just inability to put things together. On the plays where they would have protection, it might have been a drop or a bad read. So that's since gotten a little bit better, but it was pretty much an offensive perfect storm, and then a defense that had trouble with their contain on about 5 plays that really cost them. Otherwise, they held them down, but all 5 of those plays were against the Power O.
Now, what I wanted to ask about was Chandler Whitmer, your quarterback. I watched the Michigan game, and there was one pass that was the difference in that game for Michigan, and it just changed the whole complexion of the game. What I've noticed is he's struggling a lot this season. It was against Townsend, it was against Michigan. Is this just a maturity thing? Is it the O-line? Is he getting more mature as the season goes on, or is this something you see persisting throughout the season in terms of his decision making?
I think Whitmer has definitely shown improvement from that Towson game. Against Towson, he had pocket presence that was of a scary little kid. Any sign of a pass rush, he was simply out of there. Against Maryland, it was better, and against Michigan, he did take a fair amount of shots. I think his arm strength won't wow you, but it's sufficient He's got good accuracy, as you saw in a near deep ball to Jeremy Davis. The Huskies went down and subsequently scored anyway. And the maturity's there. It's just a matter, like I said earlier, of the overall execution being put together. So when he's delivering the ball, they had 3 drops on their first 5 offensive passing plays. So it wasn't necessarily all him or really just one play, but the protection's there when the catch is there and a strong throw, and they've had trouble putting all 3 of those together.
Andrew, question for you. So our athletic director, Ward Manuel, has left UB and took a job at UConn. Tell me how, 1, Ward has been received, 2, what has he done since he's been there, and 3, what do the overall fans think of Ward Manuel?
I think Ward's been great out here in Stores, and part of that is because of the situation he stepped into. Obviously, the biggest news with UConn sports in the last couple of years has been moving to the American Conference and essentially being shunned in all the conference realignment, and the one person who's going to have the biggest hand in stopping that would have been Manuel. Now, the second biggest piece of news brought a smile to every Husky fan's face, and which was the extension of the men's basketball coach, Kevin Ollie. Ollie was insistent under the Hall of Famer Jim Calhoun, who retired just over a season ago, and has since done a fantastic job with the program. Now, I think people don't really necessarily know Ward Manuel all that well. He does have a presence at games, but unless you're a member of the media or amongst them or hardcore fans, you aren't able to really see the impact he's had. Otherwise, I think he's done a very good job of keeping a high standard for success, obviously on the field or on the court, while also mandating that sort of success in the classroom. So that Ollie extension was a big thing, but obviously the conference realignment was a big shock to everyone around these parts about a year ago.
Conrad?
Another question?
Yeah.
Actually, can you come back to me?
Sure. Hey, Andrew, any questions for us coming this way?
My biggest thing is injuries. How's Brandon Oliver doing, and overall the Bulls looking going into this weekend?
I'll grab that.
I'm not so sure. I'll take that. I'll start that. Obviously, we're going to have some input, but I'm a bit worried about Oliver's durability. I think 2011 may have worn him down. He has not been the same back since he got injured against Kent. Now, that could be the level of competition this year. We didn't have a chance to see what he could do against Stony Brook because he dinged his knee up again. Mm-hmm. Hopefully, Quinn keeping him out of that game kind of keeps him healthy for this week, because we do need that consistent running game right now. We don't have a dual threat quarterback like we have in years past, so you got a pocket passer and need someone else who can pound the ball for you.
All right. How has that offense looked? I mean, it was very different with Zordich back in East Hartford a year ago compared to what I've seen so far, at least on tape, with your new traditional drop back passer. What do you like from the offense? What do you not like?
Well, that definitely depends on Oliver. Licata has shown some great moments, and he's had a lot of moments that make you realize he's only had a few starts. It's really going to be dependent on Alex Newts. If it's the one from Baylor, 6 catches, 197 yards, that's a game changer. If it's the one that we had last week or 2 weeks ago against Stony Brook, where he had 10 catches, but each were for about, I think, 3 yards, it's not that much of a game changer. The key against us is getting guys out of the box, because we love to run the power O up the middle. We love to dive up the middle, and we don't have the mass to clear the lanes, so we need less and less guys in that box area. We haven't really been able to do that with much success this year, but it'll be interesting with UConn's susceptibility to the power O run game versus UB's inability to block for it. I guess it'll be the stoppable force against the movable object, and see which one wins that one.
All right, sounds good. Thank you, guys.
Tim, Conrad, any last questions for Andrew?
Yeah, so we're counting down the days until our coach finally gets his pink slip after his 3 years of little success. I know Pasqualoni got a lot of heat, especially after the Townsend loss. Is he going to finish the season as the coach of UConn?
I certainly think so, unless the team goes on a winless streak that reaches 0-7, 0-8. I think he's going to make it through the end of the year, and then at that point, like you said, receive his proverbial pink slip.
Tim, any last questions?
No, I'm good.
Andrew, we'll
Thank
get you
you.
out of here on this.
All
Tell me your
right.
prediction. Tell me your prediction for the score this weekend. Score.
The infamous prediction question to get me out. I would say Huskies pull this one out on the road, though it's going to be a one-score game till the end. 26-16.
That's a shocker that you picked UConn. Good for you.
Yeah.
Hey, Andrew, thank you very much for your time. We appreciate you coming in here, staying up late with us. Enjoy the game this weekend. We hope you don't enjoy too much, but thanks a lot for spending some time with us.
Yeah, no problem. Have a good one, guys. Thank you.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night.
What's going to happen this week? So we've got UConn. UConn is 0-3. They got beat pretty good by Maryland, their old ball coach. They lost to an FCS team in Townsend. Now, people say, hey, Stony Brook. We say, hey, it's a good FCS team. No, Townsend is a good team. So I'll give Townsend number 2 in the FCS. And I think a lot of us know that last week that UConn really played Michigan well, but now again, this is 2 weeks for Michigan that really struggled to pull out a victory. So, Conrad, tell me please, what you think UB is going to do well. What's UB going to struggle? What do you think UConn's going to do well against us, and where's UConn going to struggle?
2 years in a row now, UB has struggled in getting pressure on the quarterback against UConn, and that is UConn's weakness. If I have any theme of this year's team, is that we have not attacked the other team's weaknesses, and they have attacked ours, and we have not been able to use our strengths. Or we've found our strengths, and then we've avoided. We haven't gone back to them. We haven't made the other team stop us. So, I say it every week, but pressure. UConn lost to Western Michigan last year. A better UConn team lost to Western Michigan and gave up 6 sacks. And then we played UConn next week, and we only sacked them twice. And we dropped the 8. We played 3. We gave UConn 4 or 5 seconds and 10 yards of cushion. And you don't have to be talented to take 8 yards of play and run it right down the field. And that's what they did to us for 24 points last year. So that is, if we do business as usual, I think UConn wins this game just by being vanilla, taking what we give them, and just marching it down the field for enough points. For UB to win the game, a lot has to happen. Right? We have no offensive rhythm. Bo has to get going 100 yards. Newt will have to be going 100 yards. And we're going to need someone else, the ensemble that we like, a Weiser, Shrek, Lee, Dunmore, Hughes. Out of those 5 people, if we can get 100 yards, then we'll be okay, and we need more than 13 points on offense. We've yet to score 14 points in regulation on offense, and that's really bad. So until we figure out that offense, I predicted a UB victory, but in my head, UB loses this game. The same way we lost it last year.
And that game last year, Conrad, was one of the most unwatchable games. I tell you about, being a hardcore UB fan, that was unwatchable. So, Tim, tell me where does UB find success? Where's UB going to struggle? And conversely, where do you think UConn is going to shine, and where's UConn going to have some troubles this Saturday?
Well, Conrad kind of stole my thunder there. We have to turn Khalil Mack loose. I mean, he has to skin UConn's quarterback for a trophy, and then to make that happen, we got to bring the corners up and stick them in a jam coverage and give them safety cover, and maybe use Redden to help them out. Without pressure, we don't win this game. UConn's quarterback, as we heard from our guest blogger, is pretty talented. He's not going to drill you with the. Let me start that again. He's pretty talented. He's not going to throw the ball on a rope 50 yards down the field and do what Baylor did to us, and they're not that speedy. But he's efficient. He puts the ball in the right place. If he has the time, he'll find the open receiver, and he'll make the better decision when he has time. If you startle him, if you get in his face, he'll make awful decisions. That's how Michigan won the game. They got in his face, threw an awful pass, was picked off, and the game changed right there. So UB needs to generate turnovers, and you only generate turnovers with pressure. If we don't do that, I don't think we can keep up with UConn offensively, just for the same reason Conrad stated. We don't have the identity to do it. We'll keep trying to run someone at the middle of the line when it's not working. We won't find what's working and keep doing that and make UConn stop that. Who's going to be our number 2 receiver? Can we get someone other than Oliver to be really dangerous? I mean, Taylor looked much better towards the end of the game, so there is some hope that maybe Taylor's going to be what we need. I don't think it's so much a matter of Bo getting 100 and Newt's getting 100. I think it's a matter of 2 or 3 receivers and 2 or 3 running backs being threatening so that Oliver can go to the sidelines and UConn can't just ignore the running game, or that they know they can't focus on Newts because Hughes can do something or Fred Lee can do something. It's going to be, can we be a deep team? We know we have the skill positions to win these games. We have to prove the depth, and it's just not there right now. I'm terrified of UConn's receivers. I don't know what they'll do to us, especially if given time. So that's how UConn can win the game, is just overwhelming us with the fact that they have 3 pretty good receivers.
Good. The point that I would like to maybe discuss with you guys real quick is, obviously, I think we felt when we watched Licata in the first half of the Ohio State and wasn't flustered too much. We thought we made some smart throws. Had a nice chemistry with Newts. You saw him in the first half against Baylor. Him and Licata, obviously, we're getting open. I still don't understand why Baylor wasn't doing anything with Newts. Making some throws, was pulled out of that first half, which I didn't understand. But then to watch Licata play last week against Stony Brook, to me, took a really big step back, especially against a competition like that. I think for this team to win, Licata needs to step up and not just manage a game, but he has to win a game. Is it the chicken or the egg? Is it because we don't have a second receiver, because we don't have a good quarterback, or is it we don't have a good quarterback because no second receivers? I'm not sure. But we've got some good tight ends in Shrek and Weiser. Lee has shown that he can make some catches. For me, gentlemen, this is either a coming out game or what do we need to do with the quarterback for Licata? Conrad, your thoughts on Licata this week against Connecticut?
I think it's more than chicken versus egg. I think it's Murphy's Law. Looking at Stony Brook, whatever could have gone wrong did. We had a third down play to a wide open Dunmore through the middle, and he drops it. We have another play where Alex Newts is open, and Licata does that thing I call the slingshot, where he doesn't move his legs, and then he just kind of flings his upper body towards the throw. That leads to low throws. That leads to throws behind the receiver. And he missed Newts low and behind. It was a wide open third down conversion. Got to step into his throws. But he's learning. One of the things I saw that I really liked was they did a play action pass, and I think he saw what he wanted, and he pumped it, and it wasn't there, and he secured the ball and took the sack. And you can see that it was similar to the Baylor game where he saw what he wanted, he hesitated, he got hit, he fumbled, and it returned for a touchdown. If that happens against Stony Brook, we lose that game, most likely. But you take the 7-yard sack instead of the 7 points on the other side. So that shows that he's learning a little bit, and he's still developing. He's still young. My problem is with the play call. Licata has no chance. We ran the play action pass more than we ran the ball. That all you're doing is putting the quarterback back to the defense, giving them more time to rush. They're not falling for it, so everyone's covered. It's the worst decision. We're rolling Licata left and running right. I don't know. We're putting him in very bad situations.
Yeah, I would Conrad hit what I was going to say. You can't fault Licata for the play calling, and the Stony Brook failure was all about the play calling. Does Licata have a couple hitches in his throwing motion he needs to work out? Yeah. But I've not seen him make terrible decisions. I've not seen him, no more than you would expect from any sophomore quarterback, no matter how good or bad they are. He seems to have a really good head on his shoulders. I'd like him to to step into the long throws a little more rather than just put them up for Newts to wrestle down in the air. And then there were the one or two bad throws that you get out of any quarterback in a game. But he can't out-throw Jeff Quinn's play calling. At the end of the day, that's what you have. Jeff Quinn calls bad play. Licata throws, good pass. Screenplay goes for 3 yards. Looks terrible in Licata's average yards per pass. Not at all his fault. He's a sophomore. He's throwing the ball well. He's dealing with, the play action thing. Conrad, what really got me was it me or were those designed for him to like spin around the other way? I mean, they were even worse than putting his back to the defense. It was a long handoff. It wasn't. I mean, who hands the ball off like that?
Yeah.
I mean, that to me is more annoying than the clapping before you snap the ball.
I think when you run that out of the pistol, because the running back is directly behind you, yeah, you can do the spin. If you have a running quarterback, you can run out of that.
But he's not.
Right, and I mean, putting the back to the defense, the ball is completely covered. So when he comes out of that spin, the defense doesn't know who has it. But like you said, he's not light on the ground. Now they did that a lot, but they established the run a little more than we did, and then and Negron was actually a threat to move around the pocket. Licata is a non-threat to run the ball. So yeah, that's not the best formation to run the play action. I think the best thing we did was the draw play out of shotgun. We did the pops twice. Gave him a lot of space to run quickly, and then we would pull the draw out of pops and then throw as a play action. That was more effective than the play action out of the pistol where he does have to do that spin.
It just looked awkward, and on all those plays when you did that spin, draw fake pass thing. It seemed like they were jumping all over him before he even got a chance to look downfield. So I just hope they take that play and kind of crinkle it up and throw it out this week because, Stony Brook's a decent FCS team, but I can't imagine what UConn would do with that kind of time to get to Licata.
Moving to the next segment. So, Tim, I'm going to go to you first. Tim, what we're going to be talking about now is UB wins this game on Saturday because they did this. So, Tim, what does UB do well on Saturday specifically to win this game?
UB wins this game on Saturday because Khalil Mack walks away with 3 or 4 UConn helmets tied to his belt as trophies. That's how UB wins this game.
Conrad, why does UB win this game on Saturday?
UB wins this game if they realize that they have weapons they're not using. The one I'm thinking of, mostly I'm thinking of Devin Campbell, who was barely mentioned in the game until he recovered a fumble. And then the next play was a trick play in his direction. He had the big play in Ohio State that down to the 3 before UB couldn't punch it in. He was a big play machine last year, and a team that is lacking for points and big plays. I think Devin Campbell's not in the field enough, and we don't not like we have a prominent number 2. I would be okay with having Devin Campbell be my starting running back or my number 2 receiver. Mm-hmm. But he seems to be too talented to leave on the sidelines in favor of John Dunmore, a guy I've never seen, or Anthony Taylor, a guy who hasn't really proven himself to be a big play guy. And you can probably say the same thing for James Potts.
Great point. I think if UB wins this game, we can't run up the middle for 1.5 yards, 2 yards. Either we got to figure out if Bo's healthy, assuming that Bo plays, we need to get Bo some holes. I understand maybe we're trying to do more of a pass protection because Licata's not mobile, but they need to carve some holes for Bo to get some yards. If we're going to win this game, we're going to have a big dust cloud and we're going to move this ball up and down the field by Bo or these guys running the ball. We really haven't seen, again, we're going to kind of let the Stony Brook side, but other than that, you're not seeing anybody really run this ball. I think we need ball control, which again is going to open up Newts. It's going to give Licata some time. If UB wins this game, Bo gets on track, Bo gets closer to setting some records, and we are moving the football and we control the line of scrimmage.
All right, my question on that is, it seemed that as Taylor got better, our offense got less creative, and then eventually we stalled out and punted. Because Taylor, his best quarter, he barely got the ball in the second quarter, and then his best work was in the second, once we had the 10-3 lead. How does Bo change the dynamic? Do you think he gets an extra yard, gets more first downs, or do you think that Quinn just feels more comfortable with Bo there, maybe in pass coverage, that he can do more stuff with his starting running back.
Conrad, you're asking me to make logic out of something that's illogical, and that's called Jeff Quinn's play calling. Again, I'm going to skirt that issue because no matter what I say, I'm going to be wrong.
Well, I'll jump on it.
I bet
think
you will.
with Oliver in there, he does get that extra yard. I think Oliver has a very James Starks-like quality of, you can get him, but in the process of getting him, he's going to fall forward for an extra, 3-4 feet, another yard or two. Those add up. Also, I think it with Oliver in there, there's a little more respect for the running game, which may help out the passing game a bit. Do I think that's enough to make up for Quinn's play calling? Probably not.
Conrad, I'm coming to you first. So now we're going to talk about our predictions. So blatant plug for the UB Bull Run Brew Peg, which is your chance to be part of the fun, pick the winner every week, and at the end of the year be the big winner and win absolutely zero. So that being said, Conrad, you have this game as UB 20, UConn 17. I want to know, how does that happen?
I'm still the champion right now. I'm still number one. I'm on the top of the mountain of the Brew Peg. But
who's gloating?
2017, I'm saying 3 touchdowns, 1 block extra point, because we still haven't covered that missed block that we saw in both Baylor and the Stony Brook games on our special team field goal unit. I'm seeing UConn kicking 5 field goals because Paul Pasqualoni is, the vanilla cousin of Jeff Quinn. We're going to see him run the ball up the middle on 3rd and 17 and kick the field goal. And then I think so I'm looking at probably a 2015 game late in the 4th. Buffalo taking that late lead. Extra point gets blocked. UConn runs it back for 2, so it makes it interesting. 2017. But instead of running the hurry-up offense, UConn will just run the ball out on themselves. So I think we'll get that 2017 victory.
This is the most fun. Listen to Conrad. That's great.
This is where you have to insert on the edit, Dave. You got to insert that clip from the Waterboy. That's what it's going to be.
I'll do that. Hey Tim, you have this game going 30-17. UConn wins this game. So Tim, tell me how does UConn score 30? How does UB score 17?
I'm kind of regretting picking UConn at 30. I think maybe 24 is more likely. But UConn's defense has the ability to make big plays. They make turnovers happen, and they make stuff happen once they get turnovers. So I think UConn can get away with scoring 17 points in a game or 14 points offensively, because I think their defense will give them 7 points or put them in position for another field goal or something like that. So I think when you have two teams this unevenly matched in terms of how they play, it's going to come down to the big plays, and I think UConn's going to beat us in the big plays. I haven't seen the UB defense in a long time make turnovers happen. Like Conrad said, the last time we really saw it was the UMass game last year, where everything was going wrong until special teams made a big play happen, and that was an outlier of what's otherwise, even going back to Turner Gill's last year, 3 or 4 pretty bad years of defensively trying to take the ball away from teams.
Well, I've got this game going to UConn 24, UB 10. I've got UB on their first drive getting down to the 2-yard line, failure to punch it in so they kick a field goal.
No.
I've also got UB, unfortunately, throwing a deep interception, and also UB fumbling on the 5, and UConn running it back 95 yards for a touchdown. That's when I smashed my TV. But then I also have UConn two touchdowns on top of that. I see Licata to Newts throwing a late touchdown. But I've got UB losing this game 24-10 on what's supposed to be a beautiful day, 73 degrees, 0% chance of rain. And for a stadium that's usually a wind tunnel, it's supposed to be the lowest wind of the week, with a high gusting at 7 miles an hour. So if anybody's been spending any time at that stadium, that is a wind tunnel. So this could be a game where the ball is going to be thrown around a lot. So that's how I picked this game. Again, if you asked me at the beginning of the season, before the season started, if I was going to be picking UConn to win, I'd say absolutely not. I would have picked UB, but unfortunately I don't feel comfortable with that. Gentlemen, just going to head out to our parting shots. Tim, I'm going to start with you. Tim, parting shots for the week.
I'm going to go my shout out first to the Stu Riddle and the men's soccer team for getting the first win of his tenure out at Cleveland State. Soccer is much neglected sports in terms of media coverage, partially because it's incredibly hard to watch if you're an American. But still, you like to see them do good. You like to see it's a very young team. There's a lot of freshmen. They lost pretty much everyone who did anything last year, so good on them. My parting shots is that EA Sports has decided not to renew NCAA 15. And this once again proves something that all college kids should learn. You are only worth as much money as someone is willing to pay you. You're not worth what you think you're worth. You're worth what the check says at the end of the week. So the big argument, the big thing that killed this franchise was people saying, well, they're making millions off these players' likenesses, and the players should get a portion of that. No, they were making millions off of software code and artificial intelligence logic and team names. And did they make the players the same style and height and weight? Yeah, they did. But the number of players who were actually worth money to EA Sports was so small that they decided rather than finagle around with kicking money around anywhere, they would just cancel the whole thing. And I feel really bad for probably a lot of the young kids who play for mid-majors or who are even on the Alabamas but not the known players who might like to play a video game as themselves. It's probably really exciting to do. I wouldn't know. When they come out with Computer Geek 2015, I'll know what that's like.
Conrad.
So you don't create yourself as the quarterback of UB and lead them to the championship every year? Is that just me? I
want Jeff Quinn calling my plays.
That's very true. He might not recruit you because you're from Buffalo, so you'll have to go to Ohio and play. I don't want to go to the NCAA. I guess I'll just say this, that I think it was the teams that pulled out more so. Yeah, the Big Ten, the Pac-12 pulled out. They didn't want their teams in the game. So I think EA would still do it if they have to. And they do the same deal they do for everyone else. They pay the NFLPA. They pay the NHL Players Association. They pay the MLB Players Association. I don't know if it wouldn't be millions they'd be paying these guys, but they'd pay them and they'd sell their game. The ones who are really going to burn everything down before they'll pay anyone a cent is the members of the NCAA and the ADs and the universities themselves. A funny tweet I saw this week, I favorited and retweeted, was Iowa State's athletic director who said, I've been over this, and I've yet to see anyone show me a way that it works paying players. And then EDSBS, an SB Nation blog, retweeted, you make $900,000 a year. So, obviously he can't find obviously he can't find any redundancies in the athletic department budget, but maybe one of us could. But I'll go to my real parting shot, and that is to alcohol. I wanted to have a nice, relaxing, blowout victory against Stony Brook, and I wasn't going to drink. I was just going to, have a healthy day for my liver, maybe have a salad for dinner instead of some red meat. And, I lasted until overtime, and when I had to really finally go to the fridge and work my way through 5 excruciating overtimes. So, Danny White, you either need to start selling alcohol or start winning games. But you got to do something. But my next video will be an ode to alcohol for getting us through that Stony Brook game. So look out for that in the next couple days, hopefully.
See, I wanted to spare myself associating alcohol with what was going on during that game. So I didn't drink at all for the Stony Brook game. I did have a beer during the first quarter because I expected by the time I hit quarter 2, I was like, you know what? I don't want to ever drink a beer and think of this game again. And they're like, remember that time Stony Brook nearly beat us?
Well, if there's something a lot more than alcohol that was in my house somewhere during that game, I would have taken that. So I don't know if alcohol would have done anything to numb that pain. I'm going to get on
Lock
my
the
soapbox.
turpentine up.
Yeah, exactly. My wife was guarding the medicine cabinet with her life. I'm going to get on my soapbox one more time, and this is the last time you're going to hear me talk, type anything about this Quinn extension debacle. It doesn't make sense to me. I am nervous for this, not only for the team. I'm nervous for the fan base. Anything that Turner Gill has ever built, anything where that became entrenched in the community, anything that happened where people actually knew that UB was on some sort of radar, if this season goes the way that unfortunately I think it's going to happen, this is going to be an absolute debacle where it's going to be like the Hoffer years where I remember, they would pay you to go to games. I remember my dad and I would go to some of those games and we'd be the only one in stands. I feel bad for these kids. I feel bad for these kids' parents. I feel bad for the kids who are at UB right now because the one thing I love going to UB, and I'm glad I was an athlete there, and it was a great thing. But looking back now, I would have loved to gone to a Notre Dame or a Michigan or something that had some big-time sports and enjoying it. The kids that go into the stadium, they deserve to have some fun at the stadium. I'm not asking them to be the best team in the MAC year in, year out. I'm just saying, listen, every 4 or 5 years, we should have a good team. We should win some games, but we're not doing that. So, again, it's a joke. This shouldn't have happened. They should have waited to the end of the MAC run here to see what we're going to do with Jeff Quinn. It might not cost us much, but again, at the end of the day, listen, White is just married Jeff Quinn. Hope that honeymoon is very well for you, Danny White. That's my 2 cents, and that's the last you're going to hear me talk about this Quinn extension fiasco. Conrad,
So,
anything
Dave,
else
about
before
the
we go?
extension.
No, I think you closed the book on this week's edition.
Okay. Tim, anything else, Tim?
No, we can leave it right there.
Again, country music this weekend, so that's a great thing. Country music, football, nice weather, and UConn football. Everybody, thanks a lot. This has been week 4, UConn football, UB football. Have a great night, everybody.